Hi there and welcome to today's episode of Piano TV. I've got a set of exercises for you to work on. Whether you've been playing piano for just a few days or a few months or even a few years, we're going to hit the ground floor with slur technique. How do you play notes smoothly? And I know that seems like the most obvious thing in the world. You just connect them, blah, that's it. That's the whole lesson. It's not that simple though, especially when your pieces have nuance and some notes are meant to be slurred and some notes are meant to be detached. Keeping track of it and getting the details right is one of the areas that I see my students struggle with the most, whether they're beginners or they've been playing for a little while. So what I wanted to do in today's lesson is give you guys a sheet of exercises. There's 5 exercises. Some of them are going to seem very easy to you. In fact, they might seem easy across the board, but we need a starting point so that we can figure out how to do some of the more nuanced details in our slur technique. So the sheet music for this is going to be on the website. I'll have it linked below. You can download the MuseScore file or you can download the PDF or both. 5 exercises, you could do them in 5 days and just spend maybe 5 minutes a day on this particular project. And I'm going to have another slur exercise video coming up soon. So there is going to be a next level for where we're starting at. But I do encourage everyone to start here as a way to get the basics down before moving on. All right, let's get started. All right, here are your 5 exercises. Even if you've been playing piano for a little while, this is something that I think you should try. I think you should do 1 per day. I mean, you could do them all in a day if you'd like to. And there's endless variations on them. What I've done is I've created 5 exercises, which are all 5-finger scales. They're different ones just to add a little bit of variation, make it a little bit more interesting as you're going through it. But we have 5 different types of slur exercises. And I know the first 2 actually don't have slurs at all, so it might seem a little bit strange, but this is really important because you have to get a sense of what slur technique sounds like, and sometimes to get a good sense of what you're listening for, you need to understand what you're trying not to do, the sound that you're not creating with a legato. So we start with our hoppiest sound. At the keyboard, I'll show you these all in a minute. We're just doing a 5-finger scale, completely detached. Staccato, of course, is more than detached. It's maybe, let's say, 80% of empty space between the notes. Whereas the second exercise is lightly detached. This is often actually the hardest one for a lot of people to figure out. And to not accidentally create a slur, because there's no marks or anything to trigger our awareness that we're supposed to play them chopped up. So when we do lightly detached, maybe there's like, I don't know, 30 or 40% space between each of the notes, whereas staccatos are a little easier to attend to because there's a lot more space, and white space, let's say, between each individual note. But still, in the lightly detached 5-finger scale, we want to make sure that every one of those notes is broken up. Okay, now with our third one, this is when we're actually going to start doing legato playing technique. This is usually doable for most people as well, especially if you've been playing piano for a while, where we're creating a smooth sound from the start to the finish of the F major 5-finger scale. And we lift gently, and then we do the same thing in the left hand. Okay, so what the first 3 exercises are meant to set up and to even get you a little bit coordinated for when we do slur exercise number 2 is the things that you're listening for. Again, you're listening for what staccato sound like, what every note broken up sounds like, what every note lightly detached sounds like, and what every note completely smooth sounds like. Like I said, these are all pretty doable for most people, with the second one being probably the most challenging of them. But where things start to get interesting is when we get to 4 and 5. We get slur hops and 2-note slurs. So slur hops are a little easier, so we start with those ones. This is the first one where we're blending 2 different techniques in the same scale. So we've got a G 5-finger scale where you play the first set smooth. Okay, the first 2 notes are smooth, but then you lift off that second note and you hop. So slur, hop, 3, 4, slur, hop, 3, 4. Okay. Now, the reason this is challenging for people, even people who've been playing piano for a long time, is it's easy to kind of be a little glib and lose some of the detail work here. We want to be really, really hyper specific and very fixated on our details when we're playing through this. So we want to practice making sure that G to A is completely connected, but we want to make sure that as soon as we get to that A lifts off like a staccato. So A, B, and C are totally separated from all of the other notes surrounding it. When I'm playing this at the keyboard, I'll walk you through some of the problems that people tend to have with this and some of the mistakes I tend to hear. And then finally, we're going to finish the set of exercises with 2-note slurs. And this is the hardest of the set because we're alternating this 2-note technique now back and forth, where every second note is staccato. So we're going down, up, down, up, down, up in this constant kind of back and forth motion. Again, it's really easy to fudge some of the details here. So let's hop to the keyboard and take a look at how to do these. All right, so our first exercise is just a simple C 5-finger scale. And we're going to keep these, like I said, about 80-20 in terms of empty space versus duration of note played. Staccatos are meant to be really kind of quick. Okay, so we're just going to take it slow in quarter notes. Paying attention to, I guess I can linger on that last note, to making sure that every note, every single note of that 5-finger scale is completely lifted. Now, sometimes what people will do is they'll play them sort of staccato, but then every now and then there's a couple notes that get sticky. So watch out for that, whether you're a beginner or you've been playing this for a while. And then the left hand, same thing. Nice and slow so you can really pay attention to the white space. There we go. Okay, then again, I can hold on that last note, I suppose. So that one's pretty straightforward. Again, just making sure you're listening for that white space. Like I said, the second one is a little bit harder where we lightly detach the notes. So this time there's going to be less white space instead of that zesty lift. There's just going to be a little gap. And the problem that I mentioned with the first one of accidentally connecting notes without meaning to is a really big challenge of doing this one. Now, again, you might listen to this and think this is really easy. For some of you, it might be, especially if you've trained for this before. But making sure you're training your ear to really hear, is there any gap? Or are your fingers completely unstuck from each other? Now, I'm not there to watch you do this. I'm not there to correct it. So you're going to have to go slowly and pay close attention with your own ear. And if you're not sure, if you're keeping it all detached, then I strongly recommend that you record yourself and watch it back. And again, go slow because it's harder to judge these kinds of things when you start going faster. Okay, so now let's move on to our legato technique. Legato technique, we can do this maybe a little bit faster. Everything is totally connected. There is no white space between notes, okay? Listen carefully. Notice there was no gaps. There was no chunks. You notice how there was some kind of empty spots in that second performance. Really listen that every tone connects to the next tone, okay? As opposed to something like this. Did you hear what was different in that one? In that recording, you can listen to it again if you weren't quite sure. But in that recording, every time I pressed an A, I hiccuped. I lifted up. So I lost that connectivity when I got to the A. My hand came up. We had a white space. And then hiccup. There was a little bit of a gap there. So that's the thing I want you to listen for with number 3. Now, number 4 and 5, things get a little bit more exciting here. So moving on to G major scale for this one, I'm not gonna go fast even though I wrote it in 8th notes. What we're gonna do is we're gonna connect every 4th note. So slur, hop, 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 slur, hop, hop, hop. Now, one way you might think about this is that you're slurring at the bottom and the top of the 5-finger scale. So the bottom, up, 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 top, down. So you're listening to 2 different things here. You're listening for, are all of your staccato notes completely separated? Ba, 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 ba. And are your 2-note slurs making it where the tones connect from G to A? But importantly, does the tone come up on that second note? Down, up, 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 down, up, 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 down. Let's try that in the left hand. Down, up, 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 down, up, 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 down. And again, if you need to record yourself to double check that you're doing that correctly, I strongly advise you to do that if you don't have a teacher leering over your shoulder and coaching you. Okay, so the last one's the most difficult. This is a really important technique. I've done videos on 2-note slurs before, but let's just take a look at how we're going to execute this. So every other note is a slur, every other note is a staccato. So I'm starting down, I'm going to go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So be really detail oriented. Make sure you're not doing 3 notes and then, oh yeah, I gotta come up, and then, oh, maybe it was that one slurred, oh, and I guess I'll come up there. Don't make it random. Make sure you're really deliberate. Go, again, go really slow till you get the technique. Down, up, down, up, down. You can do the same thing in the left hand. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Now, when we get into the next slur exercise, and there will be another set, we're going to get into a little bit more nuance. So it's we're going to try to graduate the difficulty level. I want to make sure that you're training your ear right from, this is like the ground floor of how to train to perform legatos. And the reason that I'm starting from the ground floor is whether I'm teaching beginners or I have people come into my classes and they've been playing for a couple of years, this is actually the one area that people struggle with the most in playing. There's lots of things that people struggle with, like rhythm and stuff, but really articulation and detail to legato playing is very tough. You have to train your ear to hear it. And we spend a lot of time in the beginning class, especially that I teach, going through stuff like that in pretty much every piece that you learn, because it's such an important thing to be able to capture the details, the beautiful, rich details of the big pieces that you're eventually going to want to be able to learn. So you want this kind of thing to be second nature. All right, that's all for today's video. As I mentioned, you can download the sheet music below. Just click the link to the pianotv.net website, and the download will be freely available for you there. Give it a try this week, and I hope you'll stay tuned for the next video when we'll do another slur exercise. Take care, everybody.